about Montpellier Prey today, which is one of my favourite books for such a long time, and a book that really stuck with me.
Thank you.
So I would describe it as a love story between two lonely people set in Dublin. How would you describe it?
I think your description is absolutely perfect. It really is. Loneliness is at the centre of the work. It's vital to the landscape of the novel. It's about two people who are really set adrift, and it's really a story about finding a language amongst people who can't cross over, and you're using words to kind of find a language to have these people communicate, but they don't use words. They're not capable. It's Sonny is the younger character. He's a working class kid. He's not articulate, and the relationship is with Vera, who's older, and they're both kind of set apart by, age, economics, culture, and they're an unlikely mix, really. The relationship starts when Sonny, while working at her house, witnesses her attempted suicide. And it's the first moment of intimacy between them, oddly enough. It's almost erotic in some ways.
But it's a moment when they sort of cross that boundary.
Yeah, because he's folded into her secret and she trusts him with it. And it's the start of something. Even though there's really nowhere for these people to go. It's not a relationship that's ever going to have longevity. It's doomed.
Did the story and the characters come to you fully formed in one go, or were there a lot of evolutions of this idea?
It's really bizarre. It kind of unpacked itself as it was, and even when it got down to when it was being published, I had two different editors, one in America and one here.
Right.
I don't think it took more than 2 weeks to edit everything. It was pretty quick.
How many drafts had you done before that?
A lot.
So is it a novel that took you sort of 15
It took me a long
years?
It did. It really did. And actually, it was a much longer novel.
Was it?
Yeah, it was.
Interesting.
I heard this expression, James Joyce, when he was finishing Dubliners, somebody was talking to him about it. He said he wanted the language to have a scrupulous meanness. And I thought that was brilliant.
Brilliant.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
And it really struck me, and so I kind of took the manuscript back out and really started peddling through it. And I wanted to bring it right back to the carcass, but I didn't want it to be rough at all. I didn't want it to be sharp, but I didn't want any fat at all. I wanted it to be very concise.
Every single word's there for a reason.
Yeah, there was a lovely thing Maeve Brennan used to say. She'd worked with a very famous editor out of the New Yorker, and she wanted to be able to defend every comma. And I thought that was brilliant, because I think you have to justify that, if not for anybody else, at least to yourself.
It is brilliant, if exhausting.
It's utterly exhausting, and I don't recommend it.
One of my favourite aspects of the book that really stuck with me so much was that the whole thing is written in the second person.
Yeah.
So on the walk home, you told yourself you were just returning her book. You scaled the back wall and went in through the unlocked back door. It sort of blew my mind that it was written in the second person. So can you talk about the decision to do that? Because it's such a bold one.
It's a bit naughty, all right. I was really reluctant, and there was a part of me kind of thought, I'm really sunk on this.
Yes.
This will never work.
What am I doing? I've gone crazy.
But I tried it in first person. I tried it in third omnipresent.
Okay.
And it didn't. What I was after was a type of intimacy that I couldn't get. And I couldn't understand what it was. And it was only later on, it's almost you have to write the book to understand it.
Yes.
That sense that the second person isn't a pure second person. It's a character who can't come to terms with his own narrative. And so he's separating it. And the you then isn't a you finger pointed towards the reader. It's you back to the protagonist, back to the self.
Okay.
The person telling the story.
Right.
This is what you did. And you is that kind of a word. It can be very tender you, or it can be a very strong accusation. And there's a lot of contempt within the narrative that has to be figured out. And it was a way of dealing with that that I couldn't, in first person, I couldn't do it in third. It didn't have the same immediacy, it didn't have the same intimacy, and it was very important.
But the second person, I mean, most of us have never read anything in the second person. Like,
no, it doesn't work.
No.
It works with a short story. I've read short stories that quite successfully sustain it for short periods of time.
Okay.
But when you get into a novel length, there was one book in the 80s that was quite well known.
Bright Lights, Big City is in the second person.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think that worked, but it's not used in the same way.
No.
So
no. So having tried it in the first person and the third person,
it landed out in second person, and then I went in afterwards and went, "This is a disaster. I'm sunk here."
Okay.
And so then I tried to fix it, and there was no fixing it. It's like that's what it is. I just got lucky.
It's incredibly rare to read something in the second person.
Yeah, and it's annoying very often, because very often by the time you're in chapter 3 and you've gone to the door again, you're like, I'm sitting here, I'm not going to the door, you're going in the bin. You know, it can be difficult.
But you're drawn in.
Well, I hope so.
Suddenly the whole word "you" is taking
well,
on a whole
also,
new
there
meaning.
is a thing with the Irish vernacular anyway. You know, when you go to a pub in Achill, you know, very often a story will be told in second person. Your man comes in the door, and your man, you wouldn't believe what your man says. And it's a lot of it comes across that way.
Yes.
And I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't been used more, particularly within that framework.
Yes,
you know?
but that's interesting that some of it does derive from the Irish vernacular. I found it so eye-opening and fascinating, and it sort of draws you in incredibly quickly, because one is like, what am I reading? It's like reading a whole new kind of book.